So these are orphan trains, yeah. They ran, so there was overcrowding between, orphans were overcrowded and kids were kicked out at age 14 from orphanages. Between 1820 and 1900, the population in the United States skyrocketed from 9.6 million to 76.1 million. Much of the increase was due to immigrants from Ireland. Yeah, wasn't the potato famine that the globalists caused happen and during that time? To create a crisis, and then it's all about, breaking up families, just wanting to, those global bankers cause a bunch of ruin in the world. From Ireland, England, and Germany, the few orphanages that existed were extremely overcrowded, which is probably why kids were released at age 14. These young adults were expected to support themselves with no help from the community. By the early 20th century, these orphanages were receiving heavy criticism from the American people, who learned that children's development was adversely affected by the institutions. A UNICEF report titled "Caring for the Orphaned, Abandoned, and Maltreated Children" noted that all kids, but particularly infants, lacked eye contact, physical contact, and stimulation to promote proper physical, social, or cognitive development. Orphanages were replaced by foster care agencies during the 1920s, which just made it worse. Because the same type people are running it today that were running it then, and these philanthropists come along, like I said in my other video, and they want to fix it so it's not overcrowded, so it's therapeutic. Okay, so now we've reached the stage where we don't call them orphans anymore. They're residential kids, and people, and everywhere, just think that they're automatically a psych issue because they're in a residential, because they all fall under this mental health umbrella now. No, they're behavioral issue, the teenagers too. But many of them will go on to have major mental health abuse or mental health problems because of abuse of this system. And the very people that created this system were a bunch of philanthropists that then wanted to use kids for research, use kids for labor trafficking, or whatever they wanted them to do. They couldn't look in these children's eyes and see that they were young. They needed good role models. Everybody that came along, it's like I know that's hard to believe, but I think it's done intentionally because, again, what is the Marxist agenda all about? Break up the nuclear family. A great way to get kids, is to you break up the family. You push the women's rights movement. Back then the suffrage movement. Oh, come on, women, get out there and work. Yeah, why do that? Don't you stay home with your kid? That's the busiest work you have. And that's not putting women down, but that's how they brought it, right? Was that you're not good enough as the man in the house. You're raising his child, your child. See, that's how deceiving and deceptive these many of these groups are, because they came in and just caused more disasters. Yeah, and what they caused is just more selfishness. I mean, there were people at the train. Some of these kids, because they didn't have a place to go, like they would say have stuff set up to go to a labor trafficker. And they were usually happy because they looked at it as a family, but the family that just used them as a labor trafficker. But still, it was at least something. But they knew they had a mother and father. So what happened when my last video with those caseworkers that would come in and deem the kids as, oh, they can't live here anymore. Yeah, how convenient. Then they would put them on these trains and ship them to somebody. Yeah, I would say, what were these caseworkers doing? I mean, I know today caseworkers we see as it's something different, but it's really not. It's what were they doing back then? I would say that what they were doing was profiling them. Would this be a good candidate for this laborer or this sex exploitation person? Yeah, because nobody messes it up this damn bad. I get that this is a lot of kids, and it still is. And most Americans don't even know about it. But It doesn't have to be this way. But these children, even today, they are not mental health cases, not most of them. They are behavioral issues. But it works for the science to put them all in residentials, and then, oh, they have to go in a psych unit and go on meds. Because then when they're, on a psych unit at Maryville on the acute unit, and University of Illinois Chicago comes in to, do all their grandstanding, their psychologists and nurse practitioners to say, you're doing this wrong, you're doing that wrong. Yes, I'm going to take you back to University of Illinois Chicago and do a med wash on you, and then we'll start our research all over. How nice. Yeah. Doesn't seem like anybody had any child's best interest at heart. And then yet everybody around would just think this is normal. This is, that's part of the problem too. I didn't see most of these kids as having mental health disorders. They didn't. They had behavioral issues because there was no role models. All their role models was violence, negativity, and I mean negativity on a level that would just tell them the most worst things. But I mean, and they saw that people at the highest level, if I saw it, they saw it, that they neglected them. So how do you think that messed with their minds? Yeah, it seems to me all these philanthropists, these researchers, these universities that have been overseeing the state systems in every state, yeah, you really screwed this up, didn't you? Yeah. Yeah, because it's all about your research. You people, you are sick. And in order to fix it, we need proper people. I mean, not just proper, I don't mean somebody with a bunch of degrees. I mean, people that actually have a heart and care. That will be what repairs this. It is. That is the only thing that will repair this. Putting them on a bunch of meds is not. The state has shown for long enough that they have a failed model no matter what they try, because they always put the same psychopaths in charge of it. Yeah, single working mothers were often forced to use baby farms which sold newborns or waited for them to die. Most orphanages did not accept infants or young children. Larger cities had fondling hospitals, such as New York Fondling, which opened in 1869 to save babies who were abandoned on the city streets. Single working mothers were often forced to turn to baby farms to care for their newborns. Newborns were dropped off at infant institutions, sort of like that crisis nursery that Sister Kathy out of Maryville has. Just sounds like it. Newborns were dropped off at the infant institutions, often died because they often arrived in poor health with diseases such as scarlet fever, diphtheria, whooping cough. How do you even know that's true? Foster moms would nurse the infants and either wait for them to die or they would sell them. So, and then this is when, you get your, I want to kill my baby, that group that would be like, this is why we had abortion. No, you don't even go there, because you had the women's movement come in and start telling women to get out of the house and go to work. And if their man won't let them, because the women's movement, just like all the bad actors that head up all this stuff, it was all designed to break up the families. They wanted you to get mad and demand to go to work. Yeah, and then what did that do? Then when you're single, you got to work 2 jobs just to take care of yourself and barely can take care of your kid. It totally works for the Marxist socialist agenda, doesn't it? Yeah, that's why the feminist movement is one of their all-time favorites, most especially because of abortion. Yeah. But no, none of this had to be this way. But because of the people that had all the money and didn't do the right things, and even if they intended to, and I can't really see where they did, maybe some at some point down the line, but it quickly would fall into the hands of the people that would turn it into more of a disaster and train wreck for these children. So, yeah, it's like, this is where like everybody needs to just take some kids in, or a kid or something, rather than let these monsters that they call the state have any more control over these kids. Read RFK Jr.'s book on Fauci. He talks about research on these kids.